Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here, and this is the first video that I have filmed in over a month, so excuse me if I'm a little bit rusty, but I had originally decided to stop my booktube channel for at least the foreseeable future. AJ has gone away for 6 weeks and I was feeling just very in a bit of a bad place in my head, and also I think like AJ helps me with my thumbnails, so the last 2 thumbnails were mine and I tried to like do them myself on his computer. I'm not sure how well I did, let me know what you think though. But I decided to come back because I miss booktube. I've been watching a lot of booktube but I hadn't done any, and I thought I'm just going to be a bit less strict with myself. So what I have decided to do, and I think one of the things that really was getting to me was the whole like wrap up at the end of the month thing, and I used to love it, but it was feeling very like full pressure, and they're very big videos to film, edit, upload, like all of that stuff. Like if I'm reading like 20 books in a month, say, not that I think I've ever done that this year actually, but even still, like I think I've read like 17 books in a month was one of them, and that's just like a lot. And I thought what I'm going to try and do, and what I think I'm going to go for from now on, is to make recent reads videos rather than kind of wrap-ups, I guess. So today's video I'm actually going to be talking about 3 books that I read. I'm going to go back to where I left off with wrap-ups. I'm still going to talk about all the books that I read. I'm just going to group them and do like a few videos, like some, you know, I'm thinking kind of like up to 7. But I might do like a couple of just like one book per video, and I might do some that are like 7. I've obviously read quite a few books since I last did a wrap up, although I realised that I've only actually missed August. I did a July wrap up, so I'm now into September now, but I've only missed August. So I'm just going to go from there, I think, and just like post a few at a time. I hope that you're okay with that and that is interesting to you. I think they'll also not be quite as long videos, and I feel like I can maybe talk more about like my specific thoughts about books. Like I said, today I'm going to be talking about 3 books, and funnily enough, all 3 of them are kind of like YA fantasy, and they're quite sort of like well-known ones. I feel like these are kind of booktube staples, so I felt like these 3 actually work really well, and I did read them one after the other. So yes, I thought I would talk about those today. But yeah, let me know in the comments if there's any videos that you want me to film, because I am definitely getting back into the stride of things. I have a few ideas, but I'm just trying not to like, I think the other thing is I used to really plan, so like I would have like the next month's videos like already planned, and I haven't done that now. Like I have no current plans in place. So yes, let's get started though and talk about the 3 books that I have to talk about today. So the first book that I have to talk about today is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and this was a reread for me, but I listened to this one on audiobook this time. This is the first book in the, what is the series called? I'm assuming it's just called the same thing, is it? This is the first book in the Miss Peregrine's series, and I think it's a trilogy, or is there more than that now? I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy anyway. And I own the second book, but I wanted to reread the first one before I then read that one, although I haven't then gone and picked the second one up straight away, but even still, this I loved. This is a 4-star read for me. I absolutely adore this book. I really did not like the audiobook though, I have to say. The one I listened to was on Audible, and I think I did not like the audiobook at all. Unfortunately, the author of the narrator of the audiobook is Jesse Bernstein, and I think he does the Rick Riordan general series like Percy Jackson, etc. And I don't know that I'd listen to those on audiobook now, just because there was something about the way that he did the voices for this that I just found really annoying, and I just felt like I couldn't, you know when you just can't like get behind somebody to like listen, and I knew I liked this story, and so yeah, it was just a bit annoying. I did listen to it on 2 times speed, but I do that with all of my audiobooks, and I don't find this problem with all of them, and I do think that one of the main like things because with audiobooks I always read along, but I felt like with this one, if I wasn't reading along, I definitely would not have like grasped what was actually happening. This story follows a boy named Jacob who is very close to his grandfather and has been pretty much his entire life, and his grandfather has told him lots of stories about things that happened to him that were quite sort of fanciful and were very kind of like fantasy based, and he always believed that his grandfather was you know, telling him stories, that they weren't true, but they were kind of like stories in general. And then his grandfather dies, and he ends up going to this island to see where his grandfather came from. And he goes to an orphanage, which is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And he basically, when he's there, he finds out that actually it's not quite as made up as he potentially thought it was. And he meets a lot of the children, and he meets a lot of the people at Miss Peregrine's home, and it kind of goes from there. I find this book to just be very whimsical, but I think the writing style is just really, really beautiful. I'm going to be honest with you, I've not heard great things about the rest of the series, so I am really nervous going into, is it Hollow City, the second one? Yeah. I'm really, really anxious about going into that one, but I definitely will give it a go because, like I said, I do own the second one. But there was just something about this book that, especially going back and rereading it, it just felt so, like, comforting, even though there's quite a lot of like high stakes stuff in this. Like, it's quite sort of like impending doom, possibly there's something going to happen, you know, throughout the book. The one thing I did not like is there's definitely very much the trope of absent parents in this, and for that I did not particularly enjoy that, but I do think that the characterization of the people in this one, the friendships in this is lovely, and although a lot of the you know, children in this are obviously peculiar, they have different abilities, they're all very much like real, and you could kind of believe that they would be actual characters or actual people, and for that I really enjoyed it. I also really love the fact that in the book, and another reason why I think listening to the audiobook solely is a mistake, is that throughout the book there is pictures that I believe Ransom Riggs found these pictures and then has written the book around the pictures. I think that's how it works. But yeah, I think this book was a masterpiece, and although it wasn't like perfect for me, it was so enjoyable. I'm really glad I reread this one, and I cannot wait to carry on with the series. Yeah, this one was definitely a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, we're going to go for a not so successful one, and then we'll end on a much higher note. The middle one, the second one I want to talk about today, and do I want to talk about it? Not really, is Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. And when I made my TBR video and picked this one to read, this is one of the books as well that I was that wanted to get to this year. This was one of my 2020 TBR books. I was not excited to read this one because I feel like, one, it's very hyped, and two, YA fantasy is generally not my thing, and obviously this is a YA fantasy video basically, and typically it's not my genre, and it's not something that I generally gravitate towards, and I was really just not there was something about this one that I wasn't looking forward to reading it, but I thought, you know, I'm going to go into it with a really open mind and see how I feel about it. And it follows a girl named Juliet whose touch is fatal, and if she touches, the re-establishment basically are going to use her as a weapon to, you know, she kind of has ideas of her own, but, you know, they want to use her as a weapon, but she's very much not wanting to do that. And there's a boy that she thought she'd lost forever, and there's a relationship in this, and I DNF'd this book, and I DNF'd it at page, I think, 17. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. The main reason I DNF'd this was not the plot or what the book was about, it was the writing style. I found this book to be incredibly overwritten. I don't like the writing in it. I think it's very flowery for the sake of being flowery, and it's one of those books where like 15 words are put instead of like 2. You know, it doesn't need to be as detailed, like it doesn't need to have all those words in, but it does it for effect, and the effect was lost on me. I just couldn't, I was, like I said, I read 17 pages and I was trying to keep going, and I told myself I was going to keep going. I wanted to read it and at least have finished it. But this one was not for me, unfortunately. I could not, yeah, I just couldn't do it. Also, I've never heard anyone in a review talk about the fact that half of the words are in this book are actually scribbled out. Like, throughout the book, you'll get it, and then this sort of thing will happen, and it's all, like, crossed out. And this is not just, you know, I mean, this is, like, throughout the book. This is, like, in the first 17 pages, just bits kept, like, she'd say something, and then she'd rub it out, but then I'd be like, well, are you trying to say that? It's not as if this is written down, do you know what I mean? This is her thoughts or whatever, and like, I just didn't understand that. I couldn't grasp it. This cover is beautiful, but unfortunately that was where the enjoyment of this book ended for me, because I just couldn't. I know this is Tahara Maffi's debut, and I really do want to try and read, is it Furthermore? The middle grade, is it? Book that she's written. I would love to try that, because I think that could be interesting, but this one wasn't for me, and I know now there's about 50 books in this series, and I'm not interested in continuing. So, well, continuing, I didn't even finish this one, so I think that, yeah, this is unfortunately not a book for me. But yes, sorely disappointed, unfortunately. But then we end on a high, and this is a book that I really, really enjoyed. Again, this was a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't perfect, but it's a book that I have been wanting to read for ages. It's one of the oldest books that had been on my TBR, had been on there for so long, and I was very pleasantly surprised. This was The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ardier, and I firstly love this cover. Is this not the most stunning cover you've ever seen? This follows a girl named Shahrazad, or Shazi as she's often known, and basically this is a world where Khalid is an 18-year-old Caliph of Khorasan. So he is basically, I believe he's heir to the throne, so he is almost the boy king basically of this world, and he is basically, the start of this book follows Shahrazad volunteering to marry Khalid. This book opens with Shahrazad volunteering to marry Khalid, and her friends and family can't understand why she's doing it, because basically Khalid he essentially takes a new bride every night, only to execute her at sunrise. And Shazi's best friend was one of the girls who has been murdered, and it's about her. Shazi tells she is aiming basically to survive, obviously, and she does this by telling Khalid a story and kind of ending it on a cliffhanger every night, so that she has to be kept alive, so that she has to then continue the next night, and then she starts to kind of fall in love with him, and it's kind of about that. This book was so precious. The culture in this book is so rich, like the way that it's written, the you feel like as you're reading it that you're there in this world. You feel like you can see the things around you, you can taste the food, you can hear the people. I felt like every single character in this was so on point. I loved her maid, I guess you would call it, but she was honestly one of the best characters. She was so funny. I absolutely loved her. I just loved Shazi as a character. I think that she was very much a kind of, you just felt like you were there with her, and you felt like she was just really kind of like, she's just a real character. She had things that she could work on. She wasn't this perfect character, but there was also a real like sassiness to her, and a real honesty, and also like a real grief. Like she was very much still grieving for her best friend and what happened. This is a 1001 Nights retelling, I believe. Now, I've never read the source material, and I don't know too much about it other than that it has the similar sort of plot of the king marrying someone and then killing them every day. But basically Shazi finds out in this that there is more to Khalid than what seems to be the case, and it goes from there. Like I said, there are so many different things in this. There is a little bit of a love triangle, I guess, but I didn't particularly feel like it was a full love triangle. It kind of was, but yeah, I just thought this was so good. I honestly really enjoyed this book. I really want to read, isn't The Rose and the Dagger is the sequel to this book, so yeah, I'm definitely on the hunt for a copy of that one so that I can read it and finish the duology out. But honestly, Renee Ardier is amazing, and I definitely need to read more from her, even if it's not part of this series. I think she's got some other stuff out now, so I do need to get on with reading that as well. Yeah, I just think this was such a wonderfully written book. It's YA fantasy at its best, and yeah, I would highly recommend if you haven't read this one already. So there you are, guys. That is my little recent reads of these 3 YA fantasy books. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of format, and yeah, and if you want to see me read any particular books or any particular topics or types of books that you want me to cover. Let me know in the comments down below what you have read, and if you've read any of these 3 and what you thought of them. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and stay safe, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.